Generally, we do recognize fascism of Mussolini, Hitler, Joao Perro, Francis Franco in Spain, and so on and so forth. There have been many more also, but these are the models, and if you actually take stock of these models, then you will not find any uniformity in that. Like Hitler, for instance, took Jews as the other. Mussolini loved Jews. Actually, side of with Jews. He's actually biographer, and her his uh, lover was a Jew. Thereafter, after meeting Hitler, etc., he patched up and started all something like an anti-Semitic uh, uh, notions, but otherwise he was quite friendly with Jews. So one does not get really a model of fascism, and all the people like many people wrote on fascism, etc., but they could not find any definition, and everybody actually admits at the beginning itself that there can't be any definitive definition of fascism. So what we are experiencing here in India in current phase of this our life, whether it is called fascism or not, that is not material, but it is in the same genre and probably actually extend beyond that. Perhaps the latter part of it perhaps is not palatable to many Indians. They still have some framework of a fascism and they want to fit in or see things within, but actually what is happening in India is much more dangerous. Other countries or even the existing the familiar models of fascism, they did not have these kinds of ideological backing as the elites out here has. It's a Brahminism that is the kind of matured kind of ideology that actually backs it, and in the current era of neoliberalism, also something like it comes and kind of create a resonance of it. So all these kinds of ingredients were never available in history and the familiar models of fascism, and there could be, therefore it could be far more dangerous. Fascism has a model that there is something like it believes in an autocratic leader. So we do have our own leader in Modi. And one has to really look at Modi's making to understand how it could be more dangerous, as I am stressing, than Hitler or even Mussolini. If you look at Modi's making, you will have to go into how actually he warmed up to the chair of chief ministership of Gujarat, and whatever that he has done. He 2001 he actually became chief minister when Kesubhai Patel had to resign, and he got onto the chair of chief minister, and immediately thereafter he actually enacted the carnage of Muslims in 2002. So this is not an easy, the kind of the kind of self-confidence and all that is required. If you actually shuffle through Mussolini's things, etc. Mussolini's background is communist, and he then graduated towards these kinds of ideology. And Hitler also was not very different. So he did not have any idea that he would be actually going to be like this. But his making, the background of Modi actually is a RSS pracharak, and the kind of ideological package that he carries with him and the maturity with which actually they have been doing this is actually unparalleled. So that needs to be noted. Modi, it's familiar thing that Modi never faces any this thing. He's an actually narcissist par excellence. He never faces any questions. He believes in what he does, and after 2014 he has really presented a prototype as to what the model of Hindu Rashtra, which actually is something like meaning I already said that I would not call it fascism or whatever it is something like fascism plus something is going to be. What enabled Modi, when actually it would be more important for us to really think through that a narrow window has been left for us to tackle these menace. 2019, now the recent assembly election, particularly in UP, proves that it is going to be a cakewalk for them, and everything would be plugged. Their numbers in this thing, Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha, everywhere, they will have this thing. One can draw the scenario and see that they are going to achieve the goal of Hindu Rashtra very soon. As a matter of fact, Hindu Rashtra, as Mohan Bhagwat stresses, this country has been a Hindu Rashtra de facto. But as a de jure also, this country is going to be Hindu Rashtra. That said, what is this Hindu Rashtra going to be? It's not a name change, it is not something like a label that is going to be replaced. What has enabled such a kind of thing within the so-called best kind of constitution that we have and the liberal democratic framework that we have adopted for ourselves? Every fascism had a vehicle. Okay, so there are certain kinds of things. Fascism also always comes through the crises that people face, and middle classes are the vehicles of that. Now in India, communalism, so-called communalism, has been the vehicle for this fascism. So this this was the British policy of divide and rule, very familiar to us, that they created. They always imagined, because British have not come here for something like philanthropy, etc. They came to loot the country and they did it. So there is nothing to lament about it. But it is very important to understand what we have done after achieving so-called independence. So unless that is probably clear, we will not be able to scratch the thing or actually articulate our resistance to fascism. Suppose, for instance, that this communalism that has come through conceived by the colonial times, and it has been a legacy of colonial rulers. If we had discarded it, just imagine that if we had discarded it, if we had not given them political space for that, what would have happened? Okay, so these kinds of questions actually need to be asked. When transfer of power came, actually we towed the same line as the colonial rulers. We adopted the same kinds of policies, same kinds of institutional structure, everything same, and we called ourselves a democratic republic. Okay, the preamble of our constitution, which is Julajai, then uncritically we take it as something like a best constitution, all that kind of thing, because it goes in the name of Baba Saheb Ambedkar. But Baba Saheb Ambedkar, we actually conveniently forget that 1953 itself in Rajya Sabha he completely disowned it. That he said that I was used as a hack, what they thought I had to write, and this constitution is of no use to anyone, I would be the first person to burn it out. In relation to communalism, it relates with the secularism. The communalism, the analog is a secularism. Indian constitution, everybody uncritically would suppose that Indian constitution is secular. There is no word secular in the constitution. It was introduced in 42nd amendment paradoxically during emergency by Indira Gandhi. Okay, and anyway it was introduced in the preamble, which does not make a body of the constitution. It is just a vision. Preamble actually stands as a vision. So they adopted, actually the subcommittee of the Constituent Assembly had decided that India be a secular country, but the advisory council rejected it, and then there was a debate. Perhaps this is the only issue on which something like 100 people participated, 100 members of the Constituent Assembly participated in the debate, and their views could be classed in 5-6 kinds of secularisms. And what ultimately came as something like a Sarva Dharma Samabhav, what actually Gandhi ordained or always spoke about. So this is the kind of thing. Now by default, if the Hindu people, our Hindu religion actually constitutes the majority of membership, then the Sarva Dharma Samudaya by default actually will lean towards the hegemony of that, and that is precisely has been happening right after these kinds of things. And even while Constituent Assembly was in session itself, the kinds of rituals in subtle forms were actually followed that they belong to Hinduism. Nobody notices that kind of thing. And if you go across anywhere now today, the Hindu rituals or Hindu traditions etc. are followed in a state as by default. So where is the kind of that samadharma, samabhava and all that kind of thing. Another thing, because right the colonial rulers had realized that they had a very good potent factors to divide the people asunder. Okay, religion was one, of course, that they used to the hilt. Another was a caste. So both these things, our own native rulers, when they took reins of power, they wanted to keep or preserve them. The religion was preserved with an alibi that the state ought to have a space to enact something like a religious reform. Over 70 years, it stands as a record now that the only reform that they implemented was the anti-sati law. When this Roop Kanwar, 17 years old widow, was actually burned on fire in Rajasthan, that time they actually enacted this law. That's the only reform that stands on the record. About caste, there is a plethora of that can be said. Caste, when the Constituent Assembly was in session, everybody knows that with the Mahatma Gandhi ki jai kind of thing, untouchability was outlawed, but caste were preserved. Okay, why? Caste also could have been outlawed, because without caste being outlawed, untouchability cannot be abolished. That is, untouchability mere aspect of caste. So as the surveys after survey right from 1962, that nothing has changed. Today also, just like NCA survey, for instance, the final report is yet to be out. It says that untouchability is intact. So they wanted to do something like a social justice to lower caste. Now, so what social justice is? A reservation. Reservations were not invented after after the transfer of power. It was the colonial times itself. The reservations had come up. 1936 itself, colonial rulers, with notwithstanding their divide and rule policy etc., they actually created a separate administrative class under which they clubbed all the potential beneficiaries, called scheduled caste. And scheduled caste and the reservation policy was implemented as an exceptional policy for exceptional people. That only can be the form of this kind of policy in this kind of country. So which was actually implemented by colonial people. But what these people have done, our native rulers have done, is actually diluted that policy. With that kind of administrative labor, actually the umbilical cord for the Hindu caste actually was broken, and that could have been used to outlaw the caste, but they have not done that. As a matter of fact, they create another schedule for scheduled tribe. Same toto, substitute caste by tribe and become the schedule. If their intention had been good, the same schedule could have been expanded and those people also could have been accommodated. Thereby, the stigma associated by this schedule could have been diluted. No, they have not done that. They created rather another clause. They introduced another clause that state will take a lamp and search such people who are educationally, socially backward. Now, in a backward country, in 21st century also, this country actually stands as among the most backward countries in the community of nations. Such people are to be searched out. That is supposed to be OBC. This is actually the contribution of the new native rulers has been a contribution of OBC. And in a way, it was something like constructing a can of caste worms. In my language, I keep on calling that way. The lid of which could be conveniently opened at any opportune time. VP Singh opens it in 1990 and this society becomes casteized as never before. Don't say that India was casteized as we have today. It was never. Caste was the life world of these people. Caste was actually taken for granted by even the victims of it. And victims had actually hierarchical kind of thing. It was not something like to be identified. This group was only the victim. Among Dalits also, Dalits is the most worst type of victims. Among them also there is a hierarchy kind of. Yesterday the castes were the traditional caste, at whatever their roots might have been, religion, ordained or whatever it is. But with the onslaught of capitalism and modernity, probably they were getting weakened. When Marx spoke that with the railway network coming in, industries would come in, and all these kinds of decadent systems, etc., would get weakened, many people actually lament, even communists included, that Marx was damn wrong about India. No, he was damn right. Actually, the caste, caste which interface the incipient capitalism in urban areas, etc., the ritual basis of caste among them really collapsed. Okay, so that needs to be seen carefully, and you would find that really this impact was actually happening. If this had been kept like that under this scheme, by now actually they would have been dilapidated. But now the castes have been replanted into the modernist soil of the constitution. I do not know, or I am very curious. Anybody could really think of annihilating these castes, because they are actually implanted now in the modernist soil of the constitution. They are more of a constitutional caste than the Hindu caste. So this actually needs to be problematized, and when we think of problem with me, I do not know the answer really, because the narrowness of the window. Within 2 years, whatever we want to do, actually we have to do, and the responses could come if only we could understand it clearly, that within what framework we have been actually living, and what caused the creation of this menace. Been trying many ways, like we have been trying now to organize people, etc., students particularly all over India, within whatever that we want to create a semblance of a resistance, to say something like a resounding no to the people around, so that it might create ripples in the society and some miracle might happen. But actually I do not see that much hope even. I think I will stop here, not to take your much time. Thank you.